In this video, I really want to talk about 3 lures that I have a ton of confidence in when things are really tough. So that kind of includes the time frame that we're in right now, kind of this later summer, early fall time frame. It's also something I just throw these lures a lot when I'm in highly pressured situations. If I cannot get a bite out there, these are 3 that I pick up. Now, 2 of them I like to cover a lot of water with. The other one is kind of a cleanup deal that I will throw it when I think that there are fish in an area and I just need to work really slowly. Now, before we get into that, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. There's just a few more days to take advantage of the August sale, where basically if you buy a USA made sun shirt, there are a number of different colors, you actually get a free tri-blend American Bass t-shirt. This is one of the most comfortable t-shirts I can almost guarantee that you have ever worn, and right now it is free with the purchase of a sun shirt. So real easy, all you gotta do, add the sun shirt, add the size that you like to cart, add the size of the American Bass t-shirt that you like to cart. It will automatically discount at checkout. Shopping at Finn Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel, and I greatly appreciate all of those of you who have done so. All right. Let's talk about these 3 lures. Now, there's a number of different baits out there on the market that can work when things are tough. These are just ones that I have a lot of confidence in, that I've used a lot over the years, especially fishing in a lot of highly pressured situations like we do here in Ohio. Now, the first one, I don't want to even talk about this bait, but it's hard enough to throw that I think it'll keep some people from fishing it, but it is such a good little bait, and that is the Norman Deep Tiny In. This little tiny crankbait right here is an absolute gem. I cannot tell you how many bass over the years that I've caught on this bait. And not only does this bait get a lot of bites, but I have caught a lot of big bass on this bait. I'm talking big largemouth, big smallmouth, and this thing is absolutely tiny. Like, it is, I don't know the exact size. It's probably about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, like the body of it. It is a very tiny little bait. And with that being said, you may have to throw this on a spinning rod, especially if you've never thrown really light baits with bait casters. You may want to throw this with a spinning rod. Personally, I actually throw this bait on a jerk bait rod. It's a 6 foot 9 inch. It's the One-Eyed Jack rod by Arc. It's in the Tharp series line. It's a really good jerk bait rod. I also use it for this specific lure. I also like to throw it on 10-pound tests. You could probably throw it on a little bit lighter than that. I've thrown it on 12 before as well, and it seems to work, but 10 seems to be the ideal kind of range for this. Now, this particular crankbait, it is, as you can see, it's very small, but it dives upwards of 6 foot deep, which is why I like to use that 10-pound test. If you make a long cast with this thing, it's gonna get down in about 6 foot. So that's actually pretty deep. And the thing about this that I can't really explain is that this crankbait will get bit when other crankbaits will not get bit. It will also get bit when it is just so dead calm still out there that you would never think to throw a moving lure. You know, have you ever been to the lake and it's really still, it's hot, you know, things are tough, and you think that you just got to slow down? This is a bait that surprisingly you can pick up and you can just get bit on. And I think it has something to do with it just being so tiny. Like, I think that this may have been developed to be a crappie crankbait. I'm not really 100% sure on that. Some of you old school anglers may actually know a little bit more, because I feel like Norman is a crankbait brand that you saw a lot of in like the 90s and even early 2000s, but it's not that they've died off, but there's so many other brands out there and so many popular crankbaits out there that I feel like you just don't always hear about Norman, and Norman has a lot of good baits. Now, with that being said, I have found that you have to tune the Norman baits a lot. Like, it just is what it is. When you get them out of the package, I found a lot more times than not, they don't always run true to the package. And also that happens with a lot of the crankbaits that I buy these days. So anyways, you will have to tune these baits. The other thing that you should know is that you should always replace the trebles on these baits. These are number 8s that I put on this. Very small treble hooks that go on this. But I'm telling you what, There's two colors that I like. The one is this one, which is this kind of crawdad color. I throw this a lot no matter the time of the year. The other one is, it's a shad color. I don't even know the name of it, but when you see it, you'll know exactly. It has like a greenish, blackish back, shad on the sides. It's a good little bait. It is, I cannot tell you, like this has been, I've picked this up so many times and caught a ton of fish on it. It's just a really good little bait. And like I said, it will get bit when other moving baits will not. And I think that's really important because a lot of times when we fish these tough conditions, personally, I hate slowing down. I hate, you know, throwing something really, really slow, especially if I'm not sure where the fish are yet and I'm still trying to dial that in. I like to be able to keep moving. This bait allows me to keep moving down the bank, keep covering water, and I throw it against wood, rock. You could throw it in grass. I've caught bass. The other thing about this crankbait, and this is something that is I've only seen with this little crankbait, is that because it is so small, I catch a lot of fish when this bait is not hitting the bottom. You know, most crankbaits out there on the market, most crankbaits period, if you're casting them, you really got to be kind of hitting the bottom, deflecting. Something, again, about the size of this crankbait, it doesn't always have to be hitting the bottom, I think, for bass to eat it. I don't know what it is. Like, I can't explain some things, guys. It just is what it is. This is a great little bait. Again, the Norman Tiny N. You guys can find them a little bit all over the place. I don't even think I'll have a link down below in the description, but I'll put them down there. I'll put them down there so you guys can find them easily. That's a great one. Okay, the next one might come a little bit as a surprise to you guys, and maybe not to some of you, and that is a Zoom horny toad. I think the Zoom horny toad gets a little bit of I wouldn't say a bad rap, but it's one of those baits that really people pick up in really certain conditions. And most of the time, that condition is around scattered vegetation. You know, if you're fishing kind of scattered lily pads or grass, any type of vegetation of some sort, any type of grass, any type of vegetation, again, that is where a lot of guys pick this bait up. With that being said, my favorite words, this bait is not just a grass bait. And it is one of the more effective topwater baits out there because of two big reasons. One, it has a very, I'm not gonna say crappy, but this thing doesn't have like a tremendous amount of action. It is very subtle. It just has these little, you can see these little like zoom tails on it. And when you bring it across the water, it's not even like a major plop. Like, it's not like they're kicking. Half the time they don't work. Like, it's a very subtle action. But I think that there's a lot to be said about a subtle action, because when you're fishing in highly pressured situations, when you're fishing when it's really, really tough, a lot of times bass don't like a lot of action. That is why baits like, you know, your shaky heads and your straight-tailed worms can work so well, because they just don't have a lot of action. This is a topwater bait, which you can fish fast and fish all over the place, and it catches a lot of fish, and it doesn't have a tremendous amount of action. I've been able to follow people with whopper ploppers and spook style baits and popper style baits who are fishing different topwaters, fish this behind them and catch fish because it's just so subtle. The other reason that it works is because you fish it fairly fast. You're casting this bait out, you're kind of reeling it across the top of the surface. So what that does in a tough situation is it makes a bass make a decision. That bass, as this thing is whizzing by him, he has to make a decision right then and there. Do I bite it or do I just leave it? And because of that, it creates a lot of reaction strikes. So you have a subtle bait that's causing reaction strikes. So it gets bites from bass when they don't even want to bite. Now, are some bass gonna just not care for it? Absolutely. But I've seen a lot of times if you're using baits like walking baits or poppers or ploppers, they're so loud, a little bit more aggressive, that bass, like, they know immediately that they don't want that thing and they don't come up to it, or they'll come up to it and they shy away. But with this bait being subtle, moving fast, it makes them react to it. And I've caught a lot of fish not around grass. The other good thing about this bait, you just simply put a hook in the thing. You can skip it way up under docks. I skip it under overhanging trees, fish it down a riprap bank. You can fish it all over the place. The big thing that I do like to target with this bait primarily though, especially in the summertime, is just shade. I am looking for shade pockets of some sort, whether that's shade provided by, like I said, docks, overhanging trees, just random, whatever it may be. Shade is a big deal with this little bait. It catches a lot of fish, and it's one that, again, like for example, if you fish on lakes that have a lot of rocky banks, like maybe you fish in the Ozarks, or you fish in, like I fish lakes in Kentucky, that like it's primarily rock banks, people are not throwing a horny toad down there. And so if you fish something that other people are not fishing, you're gonna get bit. Just try it. And the best thing is you can throw straight braid, a big rod. When they bite it, you yank them out. It's a good little deal. Great little bait. All right. The third bait is one that you probably would think that I'm going to talk about, and that is a drop shot. I can't not say a drop shot. It works everywhere. It works in shallow water. It works in deep water. It works in muddy water. It works in really clear water. It is a great bait. Whenever I need a bite, I just pick the thing up and work it as slow as I can. For me, as a lot of you guys know, I like a straight-tailed worm on there. My favorite is just a robo worm, just a good old margarita mutilator or Aaron's Magic straight-tailed worm. You can't hardly beat it. Like if you need to get bit, pick that thing up. You could also Nico rig it. You could also Texas rig it. You could also put it on a shaky head. Those are all great ways to fish that specific worm. It's a great one. So guys, those are my 3 baits to fish in really tough conditions. Don't forget to check out Fin Fishing, and I will see you guys tomorrow.